Hello and welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and sitting across from me is Mr. Brett Newcomb.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm in a really good mood.
Good.
Yeah.
Why?
I feel like I am part of the in crowd. I feel like that people like me.
You've been so desperate to be part of the in crowd your whole life.
My whole life.
Yeah,
I've been struggling.
Yeah.
And I'm finally feeling that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The reason I feel that is because you told me I was.
Oh, well, but I was lying.
Well, see, so you had an ulterior motive.
I did.
Yeah. So why would you tell me that if it wasn't true?
I'm trying to figure out what the in crowd is, and I thought you could show me by your response.
Oh, I could show you the way?
Yeah, because I remember reading a book back in the 1960s called The Status Seekers, sociological treatise. I don't remember anymore who wrote it, but it was a very famous book, and it was about how we acquire things to message to the world at large that we have status, and our status is of a certain rank. So the car that we drive, the shoes that we wear, where we go to school, where we live, what clubs we belong to. All of these things are markers that identify that we're people worthwhile and have the status that we need. And so the book was called The Status Seekers, and the contention was that in American culture, that's a huge driving force for all of us. We've got to keep up with the Joneses. You know, people next door just got a bigger Christmas tree, so now I need to get a bigger Christmas tree. Or they put up more electric lights last Christmas than I did, so this year I have to have a lot more, so that I have, at least as much, if not more. So I think there's value in that concept.
Well, the car thing really resonates with me because, as you know, I drive a Jeep, and and it's funny, but I drive a Jeep Wrangler, and if you drive a Jeep Wrangler, you probably already know this. If you don't drive a Jeep Wrangler, you may not know this, but that's considered kind of a club. And so when you drive a Jeep Wrangler and you see another person driving a Jeep Wrangler,
I'm cool. Are you cool? Yeah, we're cool.
Call it the Jeep
They're
way.
not cool.
Yeah. And so it is very much a very in-group kind of thing to do, and we look at other people. Yes, I do. Look at other people who drive Jeeps but not Wranglers with disdain, like, oh, they're not really driving a Jeep. I've even said that to people, most notably Mrs. Psych with Mike.
Yeah. Well, who also drives a Jeep?
Well, she drove a Jeep Cherokee, Grand Cherokee, for a long time. Now she does drive a Wrangler because she wanted to be part of the in-group.
She learned the way?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She now, if I am riding with her in her Jeep, and I'm in the passenger seat and I wave, she chastises me.
Oh, because
you're
it's
not
her
driving.
job. Yeah,
you're
she's
not
the driver.
driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do it out of habit.
She get a tattoo on her head that says, "I own this car." He's just riding in it. Yeah. Well, talking about that, I remember being so proud of myself as an iconoclast. I'm independent. I do my own thinking. I do my own stuff. I get what I want, and I don't worry about the thundering crowds, the nattering nabobs. And then I read an article about, people in my generation, my education, my income level, they were all driving Jeep Cherokees. And at that time, I had a Jeep Cherokee, so I got rid of it. And I got a two-seater sports car, a little Mazda RX-7. And then it says, well, all these yuppies are getting older, and they're getting rid of their Jeep Cherokees, and they're buying little sports cars. So I was like, damn, I got to get rid of the sports car. And then I got an SUV. And so then they're like, they're all switching into SUV, vans, SUVs, whatever. So apparently, I'm either leading the trend or following it. I don't know which it is, so I'll just believe that I'm leading it.
You're setting the bar.
Pace setter.
Yeah. So in real time, and again, we want to make very clear that we have no desire to become enthralled in politics, but in real time for us, the idea of in-group and out-group is something that is very real. The president has recently made some tweets about individuals who he said, go back to your countries of origin when, 3 out of the 4 individuals that he was tweeting to were born in America, and the 4th was a naturalized American citizen, meaning that the country of origin is America. Right. So there's nowhere to go back to. But the use of that language, go back to where you came from, is an out-group kind of language.
It's an old meme or trope in American politics. I remember in the 60s when I was in college that in the state where I lived and went to college, the Vietnam War was at its height, and almost all of the pickup trucks and cars in the area had bumper stickers that said "America, love it or leave it," and American flag emblem on the bumper
Right.
sticker. We always say things like that politically. If you don't agree with me, then you need to go away because
Right.
this is my country and
Right.
my group will make these decisions. We don't need you unless you love us, unless you agree with us. Whether it's your feelings about abortion, whether it's your feelings about gay marriage, the Supreme Court, I mean, whatever it might be, those who are in agreement with me are righteous, and the rest of you can go to hell.
Even during the Bush administration, the Bush son administration, after 9/11, when they were putting out more and more restrictive kinds of controls on who could travel and things
Yeah.
like that, and there was a public outcry against some of those things, and the administration started a campaign. If you don't support us, you must be a terrorist.
Well, and then they passed something called the Patriot Act, which has been passed subsequently, or repassed a couple times, reauthorized. And I would challenge people to go and read it. I mean, it's very damaging to the established American way.
Right.
The federal government can go to the library in my city and get a list of all the books that I've checked out. And nobody has to ask me for permission. They have the right to go and see, is he checking out books on building bombs? Is he checking out books on being a Muslim? Is he checking out books on whatever? And to help them determine if I'm a criminal or if I'm a threat in their definition of threat. And then they can come and pick me up and hold me under the Patriot Act a lot longer than police could hold me for some suspicion of some crime. I've got a right to get in front of a judge. I've got a right to plead guilty or not guilty and be confronted with the charges against me unless I'm picked up under the Patriot Act. And then they can send me somewhere and not tell anybody they got me.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're talking about this is because we want to make a distinction. One of the things that happened this week, and again, we definitely don't want to be political, but
Oh, I don't mind.
you don't mind. One of the things that happened this week was that after these tweets came out, there was this controversy, argument even, over were these statements racist. And my feeling is people use the wrong language. People, and whether you're a journalist or somebody who is in the spin room or whatever, you don't have to make these kinds of subtle distinctions. But as practitioners, to me, that is the wrong language. It isn't whether it's racist or not, it's whether it's in group or out group. And so you can use racism as identifying someone in an out group, but there are lots of other ways to make your opponents appear to be in the out group than being a racist.
Yeah, I saw a picture in Facebook this morning, I think, before I came out, and it was the sign in front of the Friendship Baptist Church in Appomattox, Virginia. And on the sign, the people that put the sign up had said, America, love it or leave it. And they interviewed the preacher in the article supporting the picture. And he said, my job is to challenge people and make them think. And so I expect to upset people. And he didn't explain which way he wanted them to think or be upset. But he's trying to be provocative by saying, let's look at this, either in favor of it or opposed to it. I don't know where his value is. But it is a provocative thought and a provocative statement to some people. To others, it's a clarion call. Come be on our team. We're like this, and everybody's not like this. Let's get rid of them.
But I see you in that camp.
Which camp is that?
The camp of provocateur
yeah.
to facilitate the discussion.
I would like to think of myself as
Yeah.
being in that camp. Yeah.
Because I see your Facebook page, and I think you do exactly that.
Well, I try not to be a lemming.
Well, but I don't even think it's that. I think that you do it exactly for the same rationale that this Baptist minister was doing it, which is, I just want to put the discussion on the table. I'm not going to declare myself in a camp.
Yeah, well, for many years I was a high school social studies teacher, and that was my job. I had to be neutral. I had to present alternative I had to, wanted to, desired to, alternative thoughts and say which one's right, which one's better, why do you think so, to teach creative thinking, critical thinking. It was my job to proselytize my point of view. I wasn't a preacher. I wasn't trying to convince people to go my way. I was trying to say, let's look at this and let's see what's there, whatever it may be.
So just to kind of lay a foundation here before we continue on, one of the articles in the show notes that is from a website called Ethics Unwrapped, and I don't know the backstory for this website, so I'm not in their camp or out of their camp, but I really liked this little in-group, out-group kind of presentation that they have, and the video that was associated with it. But in this article, what it says is that if we are in an in-group, then when we see other individuals that we associate in our in-group being persecuted, we feel empathy. But when we see individuals who are perceived of as being in our out-group persecuted, we feel pleasure. So there's a very different biological process that is going on, and this is a very real psychological issue. And I think that we need to understand when we are looking at this, if you want to be an educated, right-thinking person, I think you need to understand when you're looking at it, this isn't about whether it's racist or not. This is about whether it's in-group or out-group, and what is the goal of creating the presentation or the perception that these individuals are in an out-group. It's so that they can be prosecuted or persecuted in a way that creates this response in individuals where they say, yes, you're right, these people don't deserve to be in our in-group.
Yeah, and reinforce our own sense of righteousness, whatever that topic may be. I mean, and racism is a good example and a consistently prevalent example in our culture, but so is religious bigotry or bigotry of any kind. Whether it's, talk about fat shaming. I'm not fat, so I shame all the people that are fat because they should be like me.
Right.
And I feel satisfaction when one of them is embarrassed or hurt. That is the point that you're making, that there's some research that supports a biological mechanism that works that way within all of us. If somebody can just attach their theme to that, then it puts them yards ahead in the competition. And I think that's very dangerous for American society. If we really want to be the melting pot, we want to be the place everybody comes. I mean, you think about it objectively. You can go to Germany, you can live in Germany, you can never become a German. You can become, maybe a citizen, but you're never going to be a German. You can go to France and you can live in France and become a French citizen, but you're never going to be considered a Frenchman. But you can come to America from anywhere in the world, become a citizen here, and become an American, and people know he's an American. That didn't happen anywhere else. And the reason it happens here is that we built a society, a legal system, and a culture that embraced and invited that. I mean, you look at the Statue of Liberty and the poem that's on the book, send the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. I still believe in that. I grew up believing in that. I think it's the right way to go, and I want people to be more like that.
But are people trying to reevaluate that? Now, again,
well, there are people trying to do the in-group, out-group thing and take advantage of, part of the discussions that I hear about it have to do with the fact that the American population is becoming less and less white. And the white people have had the dominant power in all of the systems, property, wealth, business, education, whatever. And as we age out of those jobs and those positions, other skinned people are starting to step up and take them. And so there's just incredible resistance and resentment among white people, and especially among poor white people, rural, uneducated white people, that their world is being turned upside down. And so there are politicians that are saying, come with me and I'll save it for you. Vote for me.
But the statistics say that even those poor rural white people don't want those jobs. So
but it's not a rational thing. It's an emotional thing.
Right. But that's then that is my motivation.
I would say that man is not a rational animal. He's a rationalizing animal.
Yeah.
So I can make an argument in support of what I feel.
Right.
And expect you to accept that.
And I guess what I'm trying to say to people is, let's be more
Objective,
rational.
informed.
Yeah.
Yeah, rational.
And maybe that's a message that people want to hear, and maybe it's a message that they don't want to hear. But I want to be very clear about. To me, this isn't about, because you don't have to even think about racism. You don't have to think about religion.
Yeah.
When you think about in groups and out groups, just think about sports. We live in St. Louis.
Yeah.
We support the St. Louis Cardinal baseball team.
Don't say we when you say that.
Okay.
I don't do
Okay.
that.
All right. People in
I have
St.
never
Louis
done that.
support the St. Louis Cardinals, and they see the Chicago Cubs as an outgroup. I remember, it was a while ago, but I remember it very clearly. There was a guy who went to a football game in Oakland, and the Raiders were playing the Miami Dolphins, and he was wearing a Miami Dolphin coat. And he went to the restroom, and a couple of Raiders fans beat him up and urinated on him. Right. And people were outraged, except for people who were Oakland fans who said, "Yeah, well, he should have wore those." He should. And what
he
they
was
said
disrespecting us.
He was disrespecting us because he was wearing Miami colors in our stadium.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. But that is the extent
like the Bloods
of
and the Crips,
power.
it's like the gangs in the inner city. You know, these are our colors. If you walk in our neighborhood, you can't wear these colors unless you're part of our gang and been initiated and accepted into it.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll hurt you.
But that's why I feel like we need to really be careful and very specific about the language that we're using, because as long as we're talking about, is the president a racist, that's the wrong conversation to be having. It's not about whether or not the president is a racist. It's about, is this language specifically determined to try and create the perception of these individuals being in the outgroup?
And it's all a distraction anyway. It's politically, at any rate, it's a distraction. Let's all get our hair on fire about this topic so that we're not looking at whether or not the government's doing its job. I mean, we're fighting a war that we don't know why we're fighting, that we've been fighting for 16 years. We don't know what the end outcome is supposed to be, and it's costing us trillions of dollars and thousands of lives, and we're not talking about that. That's not on the news today. The war's still going on. 5 people died. Bombs blew up. Why? How come? How much does it cost? Why are we doing this? Instead, we're talking about whether or not the president is a rude and crude man. So,
and as long as we're doing that, we're not really looking at what is the psychology of this in-group, out-group thing. And when we look at the biology of it and we recognize that we are going to feel empathy for people in the in-group when they're persecuted, but pleasure when the out-group is persecuted, then now we can see, okay, this is the payoff for this whole process, and then we can ask ourselves, do I want to be a part of that?
Well, it's the human response to seeing somebody they know get killed in a car wreck. That's a tragedy. But if you turn on the TV and there's a big wreck in Los Angeles and 500 cars were involved and 20 people were killed, it's a statistic. You're like, oh yeah, that's why I don't live in a big city. So this is an extension of that process.
Right. And I want people to really think about, okay, when we recharacterize this as the language of in-group, out-group, and then say, okay, do I want to see individuals who were born in America or even naturalized citizens as a part of that out-group?
Can I avoid it? How can I get myself to not get sucked into the vortex? Because the passions run high.
Right.
And there are places that you go where they will beat you up and urinate on you if you don't share their passions, or at least pretend to. So if you stand up and say, well, no, wait a minute, I don't agree, you could put yourself at risk.
I tell people all the time, I don't know if you would agree with this or not, I tell people all the time, individuals who are speaking rationally and giving you accurate statistics don't speak with a lot of passion. Passion is usually the purview of individuals who are trying to promote an agenda or have some kind of opinion that they're trying to sell.
It's like demagoguery.
Yeah. And so, you can be very, very emotionally influenced by the passion of another person, but when you are influenced by that passion,
it's contagious.
And are you really evaluating the argument on its rational merits? My argument would be,
are you willing to be part of the mob? Are you desirous of being part of a mob so that you can be in the in-group?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully this is something that people will think about, and maybe it will be something that will spark some curiosity in them. If you would like to get a hold of us, you can get us through psychwithmike.com, or you can get me directly at Michael Mahan, Michael Mahon 72 @yahoo.com. We would love to hear people's take on anything that we talk about on Psych with Mike, or if you have some topic that you would like to hear us talk about, please get us there.
That's right. If you would like to be part of the in crowd,
yes,
be sure and get in touch with us.
That's right. Yeah.
We're very selective.
We are very selective. No, we're not. So all of the music that you hear on Psych with Mike is written and produced by Mr. Benjamin DeClue, and I thank him for his connection to the show. If it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.